Thank you, and welcome everybody. And this is our first budget meeting. Call the meeting to order. Disclosure any peculiar interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Has anybody got any conflicts out there? Nope. Okay. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Dirksen. The Town of Minto Council convenes into Committee of the Whole to conduct budget deliberations. Anybody opposed? Seeing none. Okay. Reports. So basically, I'm just going to introduce, this is a two-part situation with the budget. So we're doing the operating tonight, and then next Tuesday, we're going to do the capital. So looking forward to the presentation, and I know everybody's had a chance to see it. So I'll turn it over to Derek and Gord. You want to start off, Derek?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's certainly our pleasure to present to you the 2022 operating budget this evening. And as you can see, we've entitled this budget "Responding to Growth." And as per usual, and as our tradition at Town of Minto, we've got some quotes here. And so, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs. And also, growth is never mere chance, it's a result of forces working together. So again, you'll see through this budget process that a lot of it is responding to growth in our community, which has been a great thing. So on the next slide, I'll just describe to you the budget process. As the mayor has mentioned, tonight we're introducing the operating budget for you. We'll have a couple of speakers after I'm done. Then I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Mr. Duff, and then we'll go through the presentation. And the department heads will be here also to answer any questions that you might have. And then next Tuesday we'll be presenting the capital budget to you in the same order, and we'll have the mayor will kick it off, and I'll have some commentary around the capital, and then Gord will go through some of the details. And then we'll address any changes that you may request tonight. And then we'll get into the capital budget discussions. And then our open house is scheduled for Tuesday, December the 14th. So next slide. So as we mentioned, council will discuss the committee of whole, the budget tonight, and provide direction to approve or modify to us. Department heads are also here to provide more information or support their budget lines, including recommendations around changes that you might want to see. And again, our budget open house is on December the 14th from 5 to 6:30. And then, of course, the minutes from the council, from council's budget direction, the treasurer will prepare a final budget report and bylaw based on the information, and the final resolution to be adopted will be December 21st. So as always, our budget is driven by a number of strategic plans. We have our strategic plan, our official plan, our integrated community sustainable planning and culture plan. We have an asset management plan. We have our financial plans. We have a fire master plan, and we have a succession plan. And then backing all that up is our departmental business plans. And I think what you'll see in this presentation for the first time is we've also included the department work plans to give you some idea of the work that's to be undertaken by each department. Next slide, please. So as always, we have a vision and mission statement. I won't read them word for word. Council is well versed with our vision and our mission for the town of Minto, and we continue to live this vision and this mission every day when we deal with the constituents of the town of Minto. So that being said, it's now my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Treasurer Duff to go through the overall breakdown of the 2022 operating budget.
Great. Thank you, CEO Thompson. So as we said, we're emphasizing how we're dealing with growth and how we're going to address the levels of service that both our existing residents and our many new residents expect. and how it gets translated into practice by the budget to allocate the resources to do that. So I've got some high level overall things, and then as Derek says, we'll introduce the department heads for their particular budget. So high level, last year, our budget was $4,734,888 for operating, plus 900,000 to go to capital. So we've kind of simplified things a little bit this year. We used to fund a lot of our capital by moving money from operating to capital, and then sometimes back and forth with reserves. So we're now going to fund the capital expenditures that would normally just come straight out of operating. They'll be included in the transfers from reserve to capital. So our bottom line levy for 2021 was $5,634,000. So what we're looking at here, $5,758,000, that's all in. There isn't another 500,000 to come or anything like that. So that translates into a 2.2% levy increase. And you'll see a new line, assessment growth. We've been in relatively high growth for, I'd say, about 3 years now. And we've talked internally, we just don't see that slowing down. I always used to say there's always a risk we'll have, negative assessments as people appeal. But again, we're not having any province-wide reassessment and continued growth. I know all of council is very aware of that, and just, the number of planning and zoning reports that seem to come to every council. So I think we can confidently say we'll get at least $40,000 in new taxes, and give some credit to MPAC. They are quickening their process of turning around, and it's usually a year to just over a year, and not 2 or 3 years. So that's the overall high level picture, and we'll move to the next one. There we are. So as always, we keep water and wastewater, which are utilities, separate. So ratepayers versus taxpayers, and we always have a budget of 0, and we just transfer to and from reserves to bring that and keep the water wastewater budgets separate from the tax supported budget. And that's what we have again this year. So next one. And again, high level based on the knowledge that we know. So the 2.2% local increase shows up there. The county, again, is on track for a 2% increase. There's a lot of factors enter into that between municipalities, between asset classes. But for simplicity's sake, we'll just say if it's 2% compared to last year, we'll go with that. School boards, they are set by the province. Could be coming anytime, or it might be a couple of months away. And in general, the trend for our area has been either no change or slight decreases. Again, this could change, but the province looks at growth rate for, say, Eastern Ontario or Toronto or Northern Ontario, and we're in the Southwest. And even though we're growing quickly, we have tended to lag behind the provincial average. And for a school board taxation thing, that's a good thing, because our share of the total revenue has been falling in recent years. So again, with those provisos, that works out to a blended increase of 1.76%. And again, assuming an average residential home, the assessment, and we're all very aware that the true value or resale value of a single family home is much more than 242, but with the deferred assessments, that is the value for MPAC and for assessment purposes. And as long as everything else is the same too, we can use that figure to estimate the overall taxes. So again, we're looking at just under $25, roughly $11 for Minto and $14 for the county. So that comes in quite reasonable, especially compared to the the inflationary environment that we seem to find ourselves in for the next few months. So, and again, comparable. So here's just some high level, I guess, macroeconomic data. Mark and I were researching this, and the trends are very favorable. Considering I know the pandemic has seemed forever, but really only has been a year and a half. And we see unemployment worldwide dropping largely towards pre-COVID levels in almost every country. And so the economies are certainly bouncing back. And next one. So also budget deficits. Virtually all the provinces have cut their deficits, and some by quite sizably. And I'm thinking that's probably not due to expenditure reductions, it's due to better revenue, which is another indication of the health of the overall economy. So again, that's a good forecast. And next. And for GDP, again, similar to the unemployment, we're recovering to pre-pandemic levels. Again, it was a worldwide hit. Almost everyone shrunk or had their growth rates greatly cut, and they've now improved. Again, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just the developed countries, it's everywhere. So again, that's very good. Brings with it its own challenges in the supply chain, as we've seen, but it's good for our economy. And you know, when we used to do the corporate calls, we're always amazed by how many local industries are exporting in that too. So it's truly an integrated world economy. So we'll go to the next one. So back to the Minto level. So there's our overall structure of staff and departments, and a brief description of what we do in each department too. So and we always seem to be expanding what we're doing these days. So it's been good. And next one. And speaking of expanding and growth, we're proposing one new position, and that would be a development planning technologist, because all our departments are busy, but building and planning seems especially busy right now. And it's a bit way that we can do a bit more in-house. And also we're dealing with larger projects these days too. So I think that'll support all of us. That goes through. So that would move our equivalents of full-time to 49.5. And next one. Not too much change here. The asset management plan, we're still working on the one that we approved a couple of years ago. Our next milestone is July 1st of 22, when we have to report on current levels of service for our core assets, which is roads, bridges, stormwater, water, and wastewater, and the cost to maintain that. And then there will be other deadlines and reports to come in the years after that. But again, I kind of like the way our budget looks at levels of service, and it's going to be even more of a requirement going forward. And we have an estimate of the share of tax dollars. Again, that directly relates to the tax rate. So the trend over the last few years, as we've said, is the education portion has shrunk, and that has given the county and Minto and the other lower tiers an opportunity to move into that space without a huge overall tax increase. And just perspective, it's good to keep in mind that a 1% tax increase for us is roughly $56,000 per year. And that's where it comes down to. And the next one shows where, again, the tax supported, so you won't see water and wastewater here, but that's where things go. Public works, not surprisingly, makes up a large chunk of that. We also devote a lot of resources to community services, recreation and culture, and of course, fire and emergency, which proved themselves how vital they are this week. We devote about 14% to them, and administration, and basically program support and economic development, council, and building and planning. So those are our core activities that we do. And the next one, we're very happy. Just a couple of weeks ago, we got our 2022 Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund allocation. And not only did it not go down, it actually went up $5,000. And I always encourage municipal councilors when they're talking to our provincial counterparts, how important that is to small municipalities like ourselves. The OCIF, we just have kind of a vague announcement, but it was a good news announcement in the November 4th economic statement that the funding envelope for that is going to double over the next 5 years. So I know that figure will be at least that large, if not larger. Not in 22, but in 23, it's going to be based primarily on the replacement value of our tangible capital assets. So again, that's why we want to keep working on our asset management plan, make it as accurate as possible, and revise our replacement costs accordingly. So all good news so far. And then in our reserve contributions, so this goes from our operating fund into our reserve fund, and we've been able to increase that almost 72,000 this year. Again, a lot of it goes directly back into capital for funding projects, but anyway, we want to keep that as high as we can without putting through too large a tax increase. So now we come to the individual departments. So we'll start with administration, and that covers CEO and clerks and finance and a couple of other smaller ones.
Gord, did you want to see if anybody's got any questions on the first section before we go in? That might be.
Yeah.
I can't see everybody, so if you see anything, Adeline, it looks good.
Nope.
All right, then we'll go through them, and then if we go through them, I think the staff are going to take them and ask just if there's questions, but go ahead.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Turton had his hand up, I believe.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I can't see everybody there. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Turton. Okay.
Just Gord on the OCIF allocation.
Yes.
Talked about it's based on the tangible capital assets.
Partly, yeah.
And the more accurate they are, the better we like it. You've been working on them for a long time.
Yes.
So what happens? And I mean, it's a pure mathematic equation on that. Is that what you're saying?
It's partly math. It's a lot of judgment. That's for sure.
No. Okay. So I understand that you've got a number. We have a number in Minto.
Yes.
So we have that number. We think it's accurate. It's just a mathematic equation then to see what the number is going to be on the OCIF. Is that correct?
That's partly correct. It's not just that, it's also population. They also look at like kilometers of road and that too. So there's a lot of things go into the formula. Same with the OMPF grant. It's not pure per capita, whereas like say the gas tax, it is pure per capita. The larger your municipality, the more it'll be. Here you could have, say you had a municipality maybe up north or something that has very little infrastructure in that, they may get a smaller share. Whereas if you have another municipality, and I'm thinking in Wellington County, Minto and Wellington North are relatively small in population, but relatively high in infrastructure. So again, if we can make those figures as accurate and reasonable, but if we've looked, as you say, we've worked on asset planning for a long time, and in 2013, not that we've gone with those figures, but say we had and we hadn't revised them, well, the replacement costs of assets have just, boomed. So there will be more emphasis on that. And once that figure is determined, yes, it does go into the formula.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, and just on that, David, one of the things, there's some municipalities out there that haven't really done a really good job in asset management.
Gotcha.
Under this new program, they're going to be in a little bit worse shape because they're going to have to prove it now, not just automatically get it. So
Yeah, I remember a number of years ago, Gord told us how important it was
yeah,
that we get on this and get going. And I know he's done a great job of pushing in his spare time.
and
Yeah.
and now the government is actually going to use it, so that's good.
Yeah.
Councillor Anderson, did you have a question on that? Go ahead. Sorry, Councillor Anderson, no, you're muted. You were off mute for a minute there, but didn't come through. No. Can't hear you yet, Gene.
It does keep muting, so if you try holding your space bar, there we go. You can use.
Can you put the question in chat, Gene, or
I don't know that we actually have that.
we don't have
ability to do
chat? Okay, sorry.
But you can certainly email that and we can read it out later if you wish, Mayor Bridge.
Okay, well, hang in there, Gene. We'll try to figure you out, and then you can ask it later if you can't email it to us. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to have that open up.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Gord.
Yeah,
Start.
that's good. Thanks, Mayor Bridge. So I think in the administration, we'll go to the second slide there. And here's, as CEO Thompson was talking about, we're trying to integrate our work plans for the coming year into our budget. So this is a few of the things that we're looking at in finance. Again, continuing the budget software implementation. Just another email about an hour ago. So they're working through a lot of computer technical issues, but they're working through them. So hopefully they'll be up and running soon. We want to update our purchasing policy, hopefully early in 22. Again, expanding the long-term financial plan. So as we get into multi-year budgeting, especially from a capital spending, much along the lines of what we've already done with water and wastewater, as that's a requirement of our licenses. And as Deputy Mayor referred, we're constantly doing more asset management. And again, just had another conversation this afternoon with Citywide about what we're doing, part of the FCM grants and the municipal modernization too. The Municipal Services Corporation, I'll talk about it a little later, but we have a lot of the same staff and board members, and we're arranging for the financing for the addition. And if you've been looking in the paper, that RFQ is out right now. And also the I guess we call it the CPA institutes now. They're constantly tinkering with the reporting rules, and there are a couple of changes that will be implemented over the next year or two. So maybe we'll turn it over to Derek for the next one. Or
Thank you. Thank you, Gord. I think Aileen was going to do this one, but I don't see her, so I can do it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, there she is. Okay, I'll let Aileen do this one.
Thank you, Derek, through you, Mayor Bridge. So we're looking at our goals. Council compensation review should hopefully be done, and looking forward to presenting that to you next year. We've done some various bylaw reviews, and we continue to do that. The performance appraisal system has been completed. We're looking at staff photo IDs. Electronic document and record management system. It's very important in the municipality, and we are hoping to get some funding for that next year and hire some staff to help implement this system. And of course, big news, of course, is the 2022 election, and also training for new council members. And employee policy reviews are being continued.
Excellent. Here
So
we are.
to present the budget then for the mayor and council, very minor changes in that, just some adjustments to reflect some actual costs that are forecasted. Looking and you guys have done 28 meetings by the end of this year. It's been very busy, especially with planning. So you have had a couple additional meetings this year. In looking at I'll maybe just do the 3 budgets and then if there's questions at the end, if that's all right. The CAO clerk's budget. So there is showing some increase due to, of course, part-time labor, looking to do the electronic document management implementation, some various labor adjustments, and also staff appreciation and various expenditure account adjustments. And for the elections, don't let the number, I mean, of course, it's coming next year, so that you're going to see a larger number in the budget for that. There is, of course, a lot of different changes this year. We'll be using tabulators that will provide fast and accurate results. And also to complement the staffing that we have in place, we are looking at a 6-month contract for an election assistant who will help us with the voters list. We have had some difficulties sometimes with the voters list. This is the last time it's coming from MPAC, and then it'll be moved over and hopefully be coming from the province. Should give us a better list. But we want to be able to provide our residents with the best list possible, and also areas where they can hand deliver their ballots. And so you will see an increase of that at 23,600. And that's all I have.
Questions?
Maybe if we could take the presentation down so the mayor can see members of
Yeah.
council.
Yeah, that'd be
There
good.
we go.
There we go. Now I can see you.
There we go.
Any questions on the administration? Good explanation, Annaleen, on the election thing, because we passed that a little while ago that we're going to go there. So good. All right. Oh, Deputy Mayor Turton.
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you, Mayor Bridge, on the staff photo ID. What does that mean? You need a card to get into the town office, to any town building, or what exactly is that?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Deputy Mayor Turton. So when we first began to deal with the pandemic, maybe if I could take you back, there was some real questions about potentially the OPP pulling people over if they had to go to work and all that kind of thing as we first started out down this road. But staff were very cognizant in the fact that, you know, we do have staff going to people's homes, like our water staff checking leaks and different public works staff. And we thought we really didn't have a way of officially identifying town staff. So we came across the idea that we should probably have photo IDs for our town staff. So we're working, the fire department actually has a machine. So we're working through that to be able to get staff IDs for everybody, not just so the public can be assured that it is a town member, but also other staff that might from different departments that might not know each other.
Thank you. I remember that discussion now.
You're welcome, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, then we'll move on.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor Bridge. And we'll just get back to some finance. And I have my sidekick Mark here too. So if anybody needs to dig deeper, we can do that anytime. And he's prepared these summaries and charts and that too. So we're high level, but we can always get into the nitty gritty. So for finance, treasury, basically, again, like all departments, we've really been affected both by growth and by the pandemic. On the growth side, we're certainly issuing more tax bills. We're up to, this is a matter of interest, we're 7,438 tax bills. And it wasn't that long ago, we were, just in the low 6,000. So more properties, and the money that we deal with, the form has really changed. Like we were on an upward trend for electronic payments and receipts, but that's just been magnified greatly. So high level, basically our reserve transfers back and forth. We've cut the transfer from reserves to finance operating by about $70,000. Also, happily, and I know we noted this last year, through the pandemic situation, people have been very good at paying their taxes and that too. So whereas we're happy to see that, it does reduce the interest that we charge. So we cut that by about 40,000 too. We've made a few other, I guess, rationalizations, like incorporating some of the loans to and from for the hospital. We've got them right in the book too. So that's finance. People and property, it kind of covers a few things, such as conservation levies and other things. Also generator maintenance, the generators that aren't usually part of a specific department like water and wastewater. There's a program to do much more maintenance on them to keep them certified. So that's about another $13,000 there. And health and social services. So that's kind of our contributions to like physician recruitment and things like that. So most of that is, again, the change in the accounting treatment of the loans that we kind of act as an agent for the hospital in that one too. So I'll take any questions on those three.
Questions? I don't.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, I see Councillor Anderson has her hand up.
Yeah.
Are you
Hopefully
watching
she's
the
got her
question we
voice going.
asked that you sent to me, Councillor Anderson, or a different question?
Oh,
Sorry, I should have put up my camera here.
how you doing, Jean? Can you get? We're not hearing you.
So she did send me a question earlier.
Okay.
I have forwarded, and the question was, I'd like to know how many part-time employees and how much of the full-time FTEs are tabulated through the part-time employees. So,
Derek?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson. Councillor Anderson, a couple years ago, when I think I first started, I agree with you that we didn't calculate that correctly. So we stopped calculating that way. So FTEs are FTEs, full-time employees, and part-time are calculated separately and are tallied separately. So you don't have a mixture of part-time calculating with FTEs in that calculation. So the numbers that you saw earlier were full-time people. They weren't a calculation of FTEs as well.
and through you, Mayor Bridge, she also has another question.
Sure.
How do we decide what is included in people and property?
Well, that's just kind of been a traditional one. It's things that don't really maybe fit into public works or that too. And it's generally things that are of a global nature, like they affect the whole municipality. So there isn't a direct, maybe a controllable there, such as like generators and, physician recruitment. That's kind of a help for the general situation. So it's always been a very small part of just a few things that don't fit in. I know on some of the provincial reporting we do, sometimes the whole building department is called like people and property, but we like to keep it as building and zoning separately.
Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Anderson. So typically, Councillor Anderson, most municipalities have an account called Non-Departmental, where they separate out non-specific departmental expenditures. So we have started to implement that same thing. So this year we do have a non-departmental account that we're starting to go through people and property and separate what should be in there and what should be in non-departmental. So it's a work in progress, and I think Mark or Gord could probably get into more detail if you require on that particular question.
Yeah. And we've always put the conservation levies in there too. Yeah. So it's kind of, I know I've been around, it's kind of an old term. All the predecessor municipalities had that. We've kind of carried it on.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, go ahead, Annalene.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, I just had one final question from Councillor Anderson.
Yeah.
So where are part-time people indicated in our table if FTEs or staff complement.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Anderson. So FTEs are calculated in the departmental budgets. So for instance, parks or community services would have a number of FTEs within their budgets. Unless there is an increase in a particular FTE, we don't include it in the budget summary because it's already in the base budget. So there's really no reason that we would repeat it twice if there's no increase in an FTE or a part-time position. I think, as I've indicated before, part-time staff are hard to calculate, especially through the pandemic, where some people might work an hour and a half per day and some may work 3.5 hours per day, depending on what their term and task is. So that's why we don't include them or calculate them as full-time employees, but they are built into each operating department budget that utilize full-time employees, or sorry, part-time employees.
Okay. Gene, have you tried going off and come back on again? Just out of curiosity, sometimes that works. I don't know what you usually are fairly good with. You never had a problem with your sound before. So anyways, okay, just keep asking the questions via the email if you can then. All righty.
We'll adapt somehow.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Economic
right.
development.
Yeah, so I think Belinda's around.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Bridge, members of council. So this is going to be a big year for economic and community development. We have a lot of large projects that are all extremely important. We are going to embark on an economic development master plan. We have never done an ECDEV strategy before. We've always done business retention expansion action plans or downtown revitalization action plans, etc. But this year we're going to embark on this. The Culture Roundtable master or cultural plan was done in 2011, so it needs to be updated. It was its 10th year this year. We would have liked to undertake that this year, but community engagement is going to be super important, so we held off and are going to undertake that next year. As Gord mentioned, the Lions Medical Center expansion is a big project that we're also engaged in, as the physician recruitment, health professional recruitment falls under ECDEV. And I was on a call today where they said the vitality and sustainability of rural communities is going to be dependent on figuring out our workforce challenges. So this is definitely a top priority around Move to Minto campaign that ties into our resident attraction piece. Figuring out attainable housing and workforce are going to be huge this year. It impacts our community on so many levels. It is not something new, but it's a problem that's getting worse and worse. So those are our big projects for this year. Gord, if you want to go to the, thank you. So really the main difference in our budget this year is being driven by the cost of living increase, as well as an increase in our community improvement plan budget. As I mentioned, housing is a big one, and we have a significant project happening in one of our communities that will fall into our CIP in the form of a building permit rebate. That'll be the first of its kind for us, and an exciting project to come ahead and make some changes for our community. So those are really the two biggest elements that are driving the increase, and excited to get back to more normal. Obviously, we'll continue to support our businesses across the board as we have throughout the pandemic, but looking forward to recovering and growing, as Derek mentioned at the start. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Elliott.
Yes, you mentioned the medical center in your budget. There was no cost to us in that, if I was correct on that. So it's just it's something you have to support. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah, it's not a budget thing for us. It'll be in Gord's because it's separate, right? It's a separate corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so it costs no, it shouldn't affect our budget whatsoever.
No, it's just something that we're working on, is going to be very important for the growth of the community, is finding a physician for that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, maybe I'll just, Councillor Elliott, you'll see a little bit in the community services. So as we say, the almost all the activity of the youth hub is reported in the municipal corporation. However, the town of Minto and the township of Mapleton are monetary supporters, and that's what shows up in this budget, and you'll see that later on.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Just on the economic development plan, Belinda, part of my homework on the plane was to finish off my reading on the Western Wardens workforce strategies, and we're going to have the final document on the 10th. It was interesting to see a lot of the action plans that were coming out of there. Some of the things we do already for some of the things that we're already involved in. So it was nice to see that we do have some of those action plans that they're recommending throughout the whole region on workforce planning. So that's going to be a big issue next year, is attainable housing and workforce planning. And we have some good, exciting things that maybe we can work towards there. So looking forward to that. All right. No other questions? Moving on. Next up is building planning services. Terry, you're very busy.
I am. Thank you, everyone. And I apologize. I'm kind of in the same boat as Jean is tonight. My internet.
I can hear you anyways.
My internet has failed me, unfortunately. So,
Uh-oh.
I don't know, Gord, if you could flip to the next slide about kind of the highlights for the department. So as you are all aware, we've been extremely busy this year, and things are not anticipating on slowing down at this point. We've got a bunch of subdivisions that are looking at breaking ground next year. So I think we are going to be, very busy in the new year. Couple of things that we're thinking of looking at is streamlining some of the development processes, just to help assist with making the development process a little bit easier. So those are a couple of things we're looking at doing. With the growth that we have been seeing, I am looking at revamping my budget to split out the different components that I'm looking at or looking after. So the planning aspect, the building aspect, as well as the bylaw, to basically split those out to determine exactly what the cost for each of those individual components are. I also do want to do a complete review of planning and building fees, just to ensure that we're achieving the cost recovery basis that I would like to be able to provide. As always, we're looking at bylaw review and updates, just to make sure some of our bylaws that are historically out of date, we're going to try to get them more up to current provisions. Application forms, we're looking at updating those as well, just to make them easier for applicants to navigate them through, as well as to get them on our website to a fillable kind of form process. And in behind the scenes, template forms, getting our site plan approval documents, as well as subdivision agreement documents, all in a standardized form, just to make it easier for staff to understand where we're at. So next slide, Gord. So our budget is planning on going up slightly. We are, as Gord mentioned before, proposing a split staff between us and Public Works. So that's increasing our budget slightly. However, our revenue that we've been seeing is substantially higher than what has been anticipated. So it does look like a big increase with the 16.6%, but our overall budget numbers are fairly substantial in terms of the whole municipality. So I don't know if there's any questions out there for me.
Questions? Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, quickly, I'm not sure whether this is your question to answer or, but you're involved in it. Should the town be looking at buying town industrial land that we can flip later? Or should we just stay as is? Is there thoughts about that, or we thought about budgeting to expand our industrial sites and make
I'll
roads or
turn that-
whatever?
I think I'll give that to Derek, Councillor Elliott, okay?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott. So I will be bringing a report in the new year, Councillor Elliott, that looks at comparing the official plan amendment that the county's working on and comparing that our current land inventories are, and providing some suggestions for council on which way we should be going. As you know, most of the industrial land now in Minto is privately held.
Yes.
So we have some concerns about us going and marketing it and developing it when it's privately held. But we'll be bringing a report. Bill and I actually will bring a report in the new year along, and we'll tail right behind that the servicing strategy.
Mhm.
I think what you've heard Belinda saying, I think what we've been saying for a while now is that we may have to start now focusing on residential development to try to get our residential inventory up to be able to support attainable housing, but also workforce planning issues as well. But we're bringing that report in early in the new year, and it'll certainly have some suggestions on what we think council should be thinking about as we move forward.
so there's no thoughts of buying that industrial land from the private owners to
Well, not
on our
so-
property?
I don't want to speak out of turn, Councillor Elliott, until you see all the details within the report. As you know, we have reserves. So if there was an opportunity for us to purchase a piece of property, that we would take that from reserves. We wouldn't normally budget for that in the operating budget.
That's,
Yeah,
that,
so,
but thank you very much then, when we can work it out. Thanks.
yeah, that, and Councillor Elliott, that was sort of what I thought. Basically, we have a report coming in the new year as strategies going forward. Deputy Mayor Turton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did I hear Terry say that we were moving up site plan fees and zoning fees and stuff like that? Did I hear him say that?
Just review, I believe.
Just a
Deputy
review.
Mayor Turton. Just a review. Similar to what they do at the county, they review them
Yeah.
on an annual basis, just to make sure. There'll be a lot of
So-
discussion before we,
Sure. So Terry, how does our fees compare to our neighbors?
We are actually lower than what our neighbors are. The big increase that we saw in our planning fees come from the county starting to bill us for what their cost recovery fees are. So historically, our rezoning fee was around $2,200. We had to increase it to about $9,000 to recover the cost for their services. So I want to review to make sure that we're charging our ratepayers are kind of in line with what the demand on our municipal services are, with addition to what the county's charging us.
Thank you.
okay, good question. Okay, anything else? Seeing none, we're moving on. Fire and emergency services. We had a good example of that just recently. Who's got this? Is Chris with us? Because I know he wasn't.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Okay, go ahead, Chris. And by the way, just, wanted to say that your crews and everybody and the, the mutual aid we had shows that we have a good working group to handle a fire that size and having that many departments there. So I appreciate all your hard work on that.
Yeah,
No
thanks,
injuries,
Mr.
Nobody hurt.
No, that's right. And thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. The having the relationships like that is huge, because being able to call Listowel's aerial truck over to partner with ours made the huge difference in that fire, being able to keep it contained like we did and keep the damage to that site. So that was a huge benefit, and it's great to have partners, even partners outside our county, that help. just before I start, I'd like just the partnership we have within the town as well. It was huge. Being able to, I was on the phone more with the water department because unfortunately we were draining their water tower pretty fast. So the two of us stayed in communications fairly consistently because we were using a lot of water, but the public works was there 2 or 3 times to help us with catch basins that were overflowing and blocked and salt and sand and then that. And Terry was there for a lot of the duration of the demolition and the whole time getting the owner and that. So it just really shows how well everybody works together in the town and how it's a great partnership that they all come together in instances like that. The rec department opened the community center and it was able to take people in that needed somewhere to go and stay warm while we had to evacuate them. So it was truly a whole town effort on that one.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, just there's our goal and objectives is the implementation of the new software. We've got the new software that we used with the modernization funds, so we need to implement that, and then there's some ongoing costs that increase it for next year. We're gonna, for wages and that, we're proposing a increase to the firefighter wages as well as preparing for other things happening next year. But we've realized that our firefighters are fairly underpaid. They average around $16 an hour. So we need to increase that to come up to where it is. We're proposing a $2 an hour increase for them to bring them up so that we can be competitive with other departments. That being said, no one's ever complained in the departments. No one's ever said anything, and firefighters are not there for the money. But I just want to make sure that they're compensated well and properly for the time that they do dedicate to us. We're going to continue to enhance the partnership with Wellington North. I know we've realized a lot of cost savings, and then eventually in the future, we're going to have a report back to show you how much cost savings we've had and where we've been able to save a lot of the money. We're going to hopefully do a master fire plan update next year to outline our new strategic initiatives because we met most of our other ones. And we need to keep on our recruitment and retention programs. The wage increase is one thing, but now that COVID's hopefully going to end, we can start by doing some recruitment and retention stuff because it's always a difficult thing to try and recruit and to retain who we have. We just recently hired 11 new firefighters in Minto. So, and that's just due to some people moving away and retirements. So we're trying to stay on top of it, but it gets tougher and tougher for sure. Next page. So yeah, just a smaller increase, and most of that is due to the wage increase of $2 an hour for the firefighters to bring them up to comparatively. Just to give you an idea, most other departments in the county, they're in the low to mid $20 an hour range for their firefighters. So again, our firefighters haven't complained, and it's just something that we've done a little bit of a comparison, and we're just gonna give them a little bit of a boost to help keep them in line to where they hopefully should be. Any questions?
Questions? Councillor Dirksen.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for that report. I'm wondering on where there's more information later on in the presentation, it talks about move FPO salary from expenditures to labor, and there's a $35,000 positive number, and then you go down a few lines in the same description, and then it's a negative 35,000. I'm just wondering what that is all about. Can you explain that?
That's just moving Cam's portion. So he's the 0.4 for our department. So that's moving him to so that all the wages are under the same umbrella. It didn't make any sense to have him out on a line all by himself. So that's just aligning under administration that his wage goes in with everybody else's. So it's the administration wages. So that's all that is simply moving. It's just moving his from one account to the other account.
Okay.
Okay. And I just want to say something, Chris. I know over the years we've talked about it, but I do believe this is the first time the firemen have had an increase in a long, long time, because I can't remember us giving them an increase. I know you, but I also know some of our other townships and other areas around us are having a hard time in recruitment. So it's very important that we keep them up. So I think that's a good move on your part, even though they didn't ask for it. Sometimes you don't have to ask for something when it's well deserved. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Chris. Going on to the next, community services. I got Matt here. Where's Matt?
You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Yeah, just a couple of the goals and objectives for 2022 for community services is if the pandemic settles down, it would be nice to resume the master plan process. We did get started in early 2020 and then it's been on pause ever since. The Grove, the Palmerston site's been open for a couple of months now. It's been very busy with the high school right across the street. And with school being in person, that's even better. We've got the big renovation project at the Palmerston Arena. We're hoping that it will be completed by the end of next year. And then something we're also looking at is the for program registration and facility bookings, looking at software, something that's best in class as opposed to a jack of all trades approach. And looking especially from the program registration side of things, we had a very busy summer and we do run after school programming year round. It would be nice to streamline that process and cut down some of the back end administration that is currently getting done that could be automated. Next slide. So at the end of the day, the 2021 to 2022 budget increase, there's a few driving forces for that. The big one is the Palmerston Arena expansion project. So we did budget under recreation facilities, our first repayment, which would be $73,000. We're also looking at a slight budgeted increase for insurance. And we did actually take insurance and we consolidated it under recreation administration. I know in the past, just with various providers, we've had some different ones. And in some cases, it was tricky to figure out how X was allocated to one budget line and a certain amount was allocated to another. We ended up consolidating it to recreation administration moving forward. And it's up about 5,000 or budgeted to be up about 5,000. We put a little bit more money into health and safety to get some more and some of our newer committee members trained in part 1 and 2. We also are looking at a slight increase for the youth hub, the Grove Palmerston. So we're looking at 30,000 there and a matching contribution from Mapleton. And that's just to mostly cover the rent, utilities, program supplies, and then a portion of the staff wages that go into there. We did have to look at slight increases to the pool. We've had a couple of very busy summers. It was nice to be open in 2020 as well as this past summer, being outdoors, very well utilized. So just proposing some slight increases there. And the last one was just for the Norgan. The rebound there has been slower than we had hoped. But at this point, we are projecting a 0 net budget impact, but hoping to put 4,500 into reserves for things moving forward. Are there any questions?
Questions for Matt? Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Next up is Public Works. Mike, so just, are you off the plow now, Mike? Are you able to do this or are you still plowing?
No, I'm off the plow here. We're all
Okay, good.
We're good for the night, hopefully. So just to start off with the goals and objectives for this year, one of the main topics is going to be the flood mitigation program. So with the final design of the lower end works, they're down by 87. That will help dictate how the financial program might work for moving forward with any of the construction works there. And then trail updates, we're waiting on some a word on some funding there yet. And then we can work at some of the connections or the connector links to that trail and upgrades along the way. And then we got our annual year in review. Hopefully early in the new year, we can get that out. And then along with the building department there, the development approval process, just helping to streamline things for the developers and keeping everything in check here. And then the last item for me here is road use agreements. So typically utilities and telecommunication companies, they don't typically get municipal consent to put a drop line in or a service upgrade. So a lot of restoration works get overlooked and makes a bit of a mess out in the right of ways out there. So that's the 22 goals and objectives there. And then just starting off with the budget here, cemeteries. The major change to the cemetery budget was just the compensation adjustments to reflect actual costs. Just being under budget, so we were able to save a bit of money on that budget. Municipal drains, it's a similar situation. We were hoping to have shared service with the neighboring municipality, which we haven't been able to get anything worked out there yet. So we're able to save a bit of money out of that budget as well. Roads administration, we have the compensation adjustments, as well as the other big ticket item in there is the long-term borrowing repayments for some of the larger projects proposed in the capital budget. Roads and sidewalk maintenance, that's another basically compensation adjustments, and then just minor various expenditure account adjustments along the way there too. Streetlights, that's similar to the water and wastewater. So revenue in, any surplus or less expenses goes into reserves for future upgrades. Town landscape plan care, very, very minimal change to that budget. Trailer parks has a small revenue increase. The vehicle cost budget there, that's all the expenditure or the revenues produced in this account are shown as expenses in the various interdepartmental accounts throughout, just a tracking mechanism to know how much each piece of equipment is costing us throughout the duration of the life of the equipment. And then winter control, the compensation again, and a bit of material added increase for salt and sand material there. Is there any questions?
Questions, Deputy Mayor Turton?
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. So, Mike, the road use agreements, I mean, up until now, we have no agreements with the utilities, telecom. What makes you think that we'll be able to? And sorry, if that's the case, we have no agreements. What makes you think up until now we have not had agreements? What makes you think we'll be able to secure agreements?
So with various neighboring municipalities, they do have mechanisms in place. It's been up until the recent years with development, we've been able to communicate back and forth with the individual utilities. But just with the abundance of new houses and everything going up everywhere, it's getting very hard to keep track of where everything's happening at this point. So we're confident that we can get something in place.
Good. Well, good luck with that. Second question, Mayor Bridge,
Go ahead.
trailer parks in Palmerston.
Yep.
Help me with that. We own the land, they rent the land from us?
Yes, they lease the land from
trailers,
us. Yeah.
So, so are we looking at, I mean, everything else is going up, right? Rental?
Yep.
Is that something we're talking about here?
Gord, can you help me out with that one?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we are landlord in that case. So we are bound by the landlord-tenant tribunal, and we always refer to the allowable increases there too. So they have been fairly minimal over the past few years, but it's a regulated revenue source.
So we are increasing annually is the
Yes,
max?
we've done that pretty much every year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Gunson.
Thanks, Mayor Bridge. Mike, how many years are left on the 10-year agreement for the streetlights? You know?
I believe we're at year 8.
Yeah.
It's
And
either
is the
8 or
plan-
9. It's getting close. It's getting close to the end. Yeah.
And then the plan is for us to take over maintaining them again, or do we contract that out still probably?
The maintenance component of it, we will contract that out obviously, but the replacement component, like when I believe, if correct me if I'm wrong here, but the original agreement, the anticipation or the life expectancy of these were around 20 years. So we'll obviously see some replacements along the way. We won't get all of them reaching that 20-year life expectancy, but we'll get some shorter and some hopefully longer than that life expectancy. But once we're out of the agreement, I think the idea would be to at least budget for a certain amount of replacements each year and try to work it out if we're having troubled areas.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Good, thank you. Moving back on, we've got, into wastewater. Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge and Council. Yeah, so the 2022 goals and objectives for the wastewater services, big ticket item there, number 1, the Palmerston clarifier. And I'm sure to appreciate the support from council on this project. We've put it out to tender on the 18th, and we're hoping to get a report back in front of council by the 21st of December. Yeah, and then that way we'll be able to get contractor on the job and get a good start in the early spring. As Mike mentioned, we'll be working on our annual reports and year in review, just to shed some light on all the work that the operations are doing throughout the year, as well as the development approval process, and working closely with the building department to try and streamline those processes and make sure we keep an eye on the infrastructure and administration review of that. The next item on the list there, a simulated capacity study for both Harrison and Palmerston. This is a very important study. It looks at the receiving bodies, so that the rivers, the Maitland River in Harrison, and ultimately the Little Maitland for Palmerston, and it looks at their ability to receive treated effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. So the treated water that comes from the plant, it looks at the quantity and quality that those rivers can accept. And this is a study that you need to do upfront before you do any sort of expansion at either one of our wastewater treatment facilities. So that's a project we're going to be working on this year, and it does take quite a while because obviously you have to collect samples throughout the year for it to be representative. And I'm sure we'll be bringing a report back to council on that study. And then last thing on the list there is I&I. The council is very familiar with the inflow and infiltration, and primarily both Harrison and Palmerston. And we do appreciate the continued support moving on these projects.
Thanks, Mark. Turn it over. Any questions for Mark? I can't see anybody yet. Deputy Mayor Turton, there you go.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. So the clarifier, is that considered an expansion, Mark? We're putting one in, taking one out of service.
Yeah, so it's a replacement of the existing clarifier that is in place. It's at end of life, and so this clarifier does it'll be a replacement for that one. But we have looked at future expansions potential plans, and we wanted to make sure that clarifier could mesh into a future expansion if required.
So the clarifier, does it have anything to do with the assimilative capacity study?
Not directly, no.
No. Okay, thanks.
you. Councillor Anderson.
Hi there. I think I
you're-
had my
good
sound
for you.
problem
Good for
sorted
you.
out.
Excellent.
So my question is, we look at all the growth and you're doing this study, but just as a educated guess or thought process, where do we need to get into bigger and more capacity in our water system based on the amount of growth that's going on?
I'll turn that over to Derek because he has some, we've been doing some pre-planning on that, Gene, I believe. Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Through you to Councillor Anderson. Yes, we are absolutely just finishing off the final touches on the mastering servicing strategy. And that is going to give council a view of what our capacity is, what our anticipated growth need is, and recommendations and timelines for adding capacity, both water capacity and wastewater capacity moving forward. So that report will come right behind the report that I mentioned to Councillor Elliott around our land needs. And so we're very excited to be bringing that. We've been working on it for some time, and it's been a work in progress to say the least, but I think we're finally there and we'll be bringing it shortly in the new year.
And just to clarify, Gene, I believe what we've got on the work on the plans right now for the subdivisions that Terry talked about earlier, we have capacity for those.
Okay,
This is going down the road further. But we
right.
have
And
to make sure that we have capacity as we go past, I believe, 5 years down the road, whatever. So with our growth projections, so
yeah,
that's why we're working on this.
Yeah, you think ahead and you look at what's going on, you're thinking I'm sure it's a challenge for all the communities, the way they're growing. That infrastructure is costly. How soon ahead do we have to start looking at allocating funds towards developing that? Because
well, we don't want to be in a situation that some of our neighbors were where they had to stop growth.
Right.
And we don't want to be there. So we're, for future councils, we want to make sure that we're preparing ourselves for the future councils so they're able to do it. Good question. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, we're going to go into water now. It's similar on the water. You'll have the same idea of this one, Gene, because there's some stuff on the water. Go ahead. Go ahead, Todd.
Thanks, Mayor Bridge. Good evening, Council. Yeah, so for the goals and objectives for 2022 for water services, of course, annual report. Excited to tell you about the projects that we've done in the past year and some of the audits and the compliance that we've achieved. So we'll be bringing that to you in the new year. And also to mirror the building department and the rest of Public Works, the development approvals process is something we're working on. We want to make it as efficient as we can. And then kind of, as Derek has alluded to, the servicing strategy will be coming in the new year. And part of what we will discuss in there is the start of the work for exploration in Harrison for an additional well. So yeah, the additional well is a bit of a process. So we're just getting started now to have a look and prepare for the future.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, on the waterworks here, you can see we were able to save a bit in the overhead. Part of that is just better reflecting actuals, as well as the wastewater and water department sharing staff, and also just with some reorganization that we did earlier, we noticed some savings. So that reflects that. And then as far as the different systems, the values are the same, just they've been divided up between the systems a little differently.
Okay, thanks,
Are there
Todd.
any questions?
Questions for Todd?
Yeah.
Gene, go ahead.
And I'll mute myself. So looking ahead again at water systems and the fact that water systems are supposed to be self-supporting, does that mean when we get to, you look at putting in another well and the overhead of that, does that get distributed across their yearly billing, or how does that get covered, or do we pay in reserves? Or I'm just trying to understand how that all works.
Okay, I'm going to give that to Derek, but to give you a bit of a background on that, Gene.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Anderson. Councillor, and you might remember last year we did a financial strategy for water, where we showed what the water rates have to be to maintain our existing infrastructure and to plan for our reserves. We'll eventually have to do that again. So any new additional infrastructure we add, like potentially a wall for Harrison, we would be updating those rates as well. However, because development has to pay for development, there is some cost sharing available if a particular development, let's say, requires more water than what we have the additional capacity. That's contributed directly to the development. The ratepayer shouldn't burden that cost directly. So we'll be looking at cost sharing agreements for that. And that's some of the strategies we're working on along with the servicing strategy. You'll see recommendations over a period of time in that report. And then we'll go back and start working on financial strategies and working with developers who want to develop in Minto and go forward from there.
Okay.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody else? Seeing no questions, and we'll go to the next one, which is non-departmental. Gord, we sort of touched on this, but you go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Bridge. Yeah, this is the items that don't fit into the anywhere else, I guess. So the primary one, again, as I referred to, is the OMPF grant, which is $1,525,000 for the coming year. And we also have general wage related. They've been working on market checks, and that's included in there too. And that's about all. We're not aware of any other, as we used to call them, unconditional grants that are coming our way. But you never know. As we've referred to many times throughout the COVID situation, we've got a lot of support and that, and we've generally put that into reserves. But if there was something that, say, we got and we had to spend within the year, it would go here too. So again, mostly uncontrollables, and it's all factored into the overall levy.
Thanks, Gord. Questions? Okay. Seeing none. Thanks everybody for participating tonight, and well laid out program. When you read it, you kind of get a good feeling of that we're not only looking at today's numbers, but also in a couple of situations, definitely looking at the future and trying to figure out where we are. So make sure that future councils have the capacity and the ability to continue on this growth pattern that we seem to be on. Deputy Mayor Turton.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bridge. I just wanted to say the same, similar to that. I mean, Gord, you and your staff, your hardworking staff there, all your department heads and the folks out at the Town of Minto office. I mean, you guys always bring a realistic budget. And with Derek, our leader, there's not a lot of pie in the sky there, and there's not a lot of cutting going on because you guys do such a great job of bringing it to us. So, and I know that the capital budget is still to come, but a lot of that is not quite as controllable as the administration. So thank you very much for the first step.
Hey, thanks, Deputy Mayor. It's always good to work with council, and I know it's harder to communicate these days, but I think we've done a pretty good job of it, both internally and with you, and we'll get to go through it all again in a week. So
yeah. And one good thing about that as well is the number you're seeing there is the number with the capital already in there, because we did change, and Mark worked on that really well, Gord, with you, and we did change that around a little bit this year. So even though we're going to be doing the capital next week, it won't affect the bottom line. The bottom line's already in this 2.2 and 1.7. Derek, did you want to say anything?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to echo Gord's comments that council has been very supportive in what we do, and we really do appreciate it. And you took my thunder there, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to remind council that the 2.2 number does include the capital budget that you will see next week.
Yeah, and I just remind everybody, because other years you would have seen two different, and then we would have had to merge the two. So it's already merged. Okay. All right, and I will then moved by Deputy Mayor Turton, second by Councillor McKenzie, the committee of the whole convenes into a regular council. Anybody opposed? Carried. No notice of motion. Anybody notice motion? Don't see anything. Moved by Councillor Gutson, second by Councillor Anderson. The Council of Town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Good night, everybody.
George. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Everybody.